Thanks, Al. We're now moving the focus to those at the sharp end, the operators. Discussions will be practical and to the point. There are no slides. This is very much a point of view from the trenches. We'll hear what's working well in Malta and what challenges operators face and where the experience continues to evolve. This promises to be a lively and informative session. So let's meet our panel. An engineer by trade, our first speaker has worked across the technical, commercial and management sides of business aviation. He has led fleet expansion and guided companies through multiple international markets. He plays a key role in shaping his company's worldwide activities. Please welcome the CEO of Comlux Aviation, Andrea Zanetto. Our next speaker began his aviation career as a flight dispatcher and has built extensive experience across flight support services and engineering. He now manages operations worldwide and serves as accountable manager for their Maltese AOC. Here to share his perspective as the General Manager of Gestair Aeroplanning, Manuel Tirado. This speaker started her career in air traffic control before moving into the commercial side of business aviation. She founded a charter-focused business that secured its Maltese AOC last year and is building a flexible, client-driven operation. Her model is focused fully on charter, with an emphasis on serving clients directly. I am delighted to introduce the CEO and founder of FliteWatch, Tropoe. Now, our final speaker is something of an outlier, hailing from the world of commercial aviation. He is part of the leadership team of one of the most dominant airline groups in the world, which has registered over 200 aircraft in Malta, giving him a very clear view on why the jurisdiction works for operators and where it still needs to develop. From his tenure as Chief Commercial Officer at Ryanair to his current role as CEO of Malta Air and Lauda Europe, he has continued to drive one of the most dynamic airline operations in the market. Please welcome David O'Brien. So let's dive right in. Andrea, you were the first business jet operation here in Malta. What initially brought Comlux to Malta, and what changes have you seen in your time working here?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So, yes, what brought us here? The sun and the weather, for sure. That's definitely a change, because we were starting operation as Comlux in 2003 in Zurich, Switzerland. And after a while, we wanted to grow the fleet. And Switzerland is a very nice country. I live there and I enjoy very much. However, it is sometimes very stable, too stable. We wanted to bring a new type to the business, which was the ACJ 318, and we want to bring 5 in a row because we invested in this new type. At the time was 2006-07, and it was quite tough. On top, we need to have German-speaking post holders, which we didn't, in a way. At least not everybody. Meetings were done in German, and you couldn't do that in English, and therefore we needed to find another place. The real reason, in fact, was cabotage. We wanted to operate through Europe, and Malta was becoming a full country, European country. It was 2004 when they joined the European Union. So a combination of things, let's go to Malta. I was not there, by the way, at the time, and Comlux went to Malta and met with the Prime Minister, hosting out at the time, and they found a right place to be. And so English-speaking, friendly approach from Minister himself, say, why not? Let's try to see if it works for business aviation here. And we open AOC. And in fact, we competed for 2-3 years with the AOC in Switzerland to see the differences. if this could work better or together in parallel with our, say, historical AOC. At the end, it happened that we closed the AOC in 2011, and we brought all the fleet in Malta. And we did not regret it, in fact. So it was a simple combination of finding another place where we could grow the business faster. So that was the start.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. David, why are you here? Sorry, second question. What led Europe's largest airline to register a substantial part of their fleet?
Tax, but not tax the way you may think it, nothing to do with corporate tax. It feeds back into what the previous panel were talking about when it comes to competition and the behavior of the larger, or the previously larger national aviation authorities. Our airline was born into a world of legacy airlines with similar structures, maybe one or two bases in their home country. And in the case of tax, Ireland, and as it turns out, Austria, claimed the income tax of crew in the first instance, regardless of where they're based, on the AOCs and where they're located. So to a certain extent, they drove us out. In our case, if we were, for example, opening a base in Italy, our crews were paying income tax in Ireland. They still had to make a return in Italy, and the return would show that in Italy they had to pay less than they would in Ireland, but they'd no means of recovery. In the case of Austria and Lauda, when we were going to open a base in Croatia, and those countries in the Balkans tend to have higher social insurance and lower income tax, we had to pay income tax in Austria and higher social insurance in Croatia. So then it took us to where do we go? And why did we come to Malta? We came to Malta because Malta speaks English, isn't hostile. I mean, I laugh at the idea of Austria being a serious competitor, particularly in the commercial side, because it is populated now. It has an excellent boss, the head of the CAA in Austria now, Elizabeth Landrichter, I'd like to say, is an excellent individual. However, it is populated by legacy AUA people. Lauda Europe, for example, is targeted 5 times more than any other by Austria than any other airline from a SAFA point of view. If you were to take our SAFA score in Austria alone, it would be something like 1.6, we'd be on the blacklist. Whereas you take the rest of Europe, we're better than the European average. So we were driven out, and then where do we go? We go here because they speak English, thank you. The CA is not hostile, but crucially, and I think this is an important fact that the country needs to address, Charles is an excellent Director of General Aviation. Now, I don't want to bang on, but I have to say, all of us agree in this room that Charles knows what's what. What's the difference between, if you forgive my language, ant fucking, just going after tiny irrelevant details, and the big picture? And I do have a concern, though. My concern is succession planning. When, in 30 or 40 years' time, Charles retires, who's going to be there behind him? And I worry about that. And to delve into, and then I'll shut up, one change I'd like to see, and that would be that Transport Malta Civil Aviation Directorate is removed from the dead hand of the corporate entity Transport Malta. We've had a consistent leadership within Civil Aviation Directorate. We've had one CEO of Transport Malta per annum since I've come here. Now, everybody makes lovely sound noises, no doubt they're fine individuals, but if the tenure is 1 year, you can't see any long-term planning. I do think that the recruitment issues that exist within Civil Aviation Directorate would not exist if they were moved into the Civil Aviation Directorate. And that's with all due respect to the fine people in Transport Malta, as I look at Kurt there.
Manuel, 2 questions kind of on that topic. How does the shortage of qualified personnel based in Malta impact your operations, particularly in fulfilling principal place of business requirements?
Well, hello. Well, quite difficult at the first side because there is a very low unemployment people in Malta. So when you want to find some qualified post holder, it's very difficult because we came to the company to Malta like 5 years ago. So most of the post holders are already hired. So for us, it's difficult. So we try to bring talent people from Spain to Malta, giving advantage of housing and travel plans and whatever. And we are now looking to we have implemented the OCC in Malta, so we are growing there because we think this is a good point to start to bring talent people.
Okay, same point to Andrea.
Yeah, indeed, finding right resources today is the most difficult part. Our business is very specialized and it is very dedicated to a specific company, specific clients. You cannot jump from one place to another and do the same job the same way. You have to learn it throughout your way, your experience. It's not a difficult job, but you need to get experience in your place because we serve clients that are very different one another. Airline business, I've been in the airline business, is slightly different. Of course, is more volume, more efficiency, more stability. Here we just have to learn what our customers want. So you have to stay years in your company in order to really get back what you got as a training, get back into a real performance. And it's not only about customer service. Everybody in the company is doing customer service in aircraft management business, and we are all in that business. So in reality, it's very difficult to find resources because they move very fast. Yeah. We need to find ways to keep them more, and it's our job to do that, and also the support of the authorities here.
Of course, it's a struggle, I think, with all of the AOCs. Alice, you considered Austria before choosing Malta. What made Malta the better option for your business?
Hi. For me, yes, I had two options. I wanted to do my own AOC. I thought, okay, which one works better? In the end, there were a few much important points for me. Obviously, the English-speaking environment, which is very important. I couldn't see myself in a German meeting or trying to understand all the issues. And then also my exposure to working with the TMCAT, basically. Okay. So many years where I've been involved with other AOCs or managed planes for other owners, it was perfectly clear that it has to be Malta because that's where you can speak to directly to the TMCAT, to the people, you get things done. I don't see that in any other environment, to be perfectly honest. I've not seen it. So.
Miguel, Malta's known for its collaborative regulator. How has that actually played out in practice for you? As the register grows, do you still see the same level of responsiveness and flexibility as you did a couple of years ago?
Yes. Okay, I see that TMCAT is very flexible compared with other authorities. In my opinion, they are very dedicated to the operator, and they really want the business. So they are very commercial on the place. So okay, they even have a booth in eBay that is quite interesting. So not all the civil aviation do. so I think they try to help you all the time and bring the business to the island. Yeah.
Okay. David, TMCAT is known for its strong understanding and cooperation with operators, but resource constraints can create challenges. How do you see this impacting Malta's capacity to support continued growth, and what could help improve the situation?
Okay, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, and obviously as an outlier, not from the business jet environment. I look at the pricing structures which came in the last year, and it strikes me that there's quite an amount of effort goes into disproportionately into business jet operators. You know, if I look at one operator, without naming the operator, which has 4 aircraft on the register and 4 different types, and if you look at the charges, pay 22,000 euros per annum in charges. Now, if we go back to the very earliest panel and comments of the panel, I mean, one of the reasons for these operators to be here is because they have a responsive regulator. Well, I frankly think 22 grand a year is too cheap, first of all. So I think some of you are seriously underpaying here, which is unhelpful. I mean, 22 grand for 4 different types. We have essentially 171 aircraft of the same type and probably don't create much more of a burden, perhaps even less of a burden, given our internal systems, than that single operator. So I'd put the price up at the lower end, because if the place is as good as everyone says, and it is, the price should go up at the lower end to fund higher salaries. The cap for inspectors should be lifted. It's a commercial fact. The cap should be lifted. And then on the other side of things, when it comes to the point of labour in Malta, I'm talking about within the operators and where we have common cause across things like compliance and safety in particular, that's one area you don't hear about when it comes to MCAST. And I think studies in compliance and safety are trans industry. So a compliance individual in the airline industry can find a job in the pharmaceutical industry and so on. I think that's an area of emphasis. There's a regulatory element to it too. One of the unfortunate things about current regulation is that there's a minimum time that you need kicking your heels at a desk before you can be considered for a job. Yeah. And the problem for Malta is you've got to find someone who wants to be in Malta, who's got the requisite number of years and is any good. Yeah. And getting 2 out of 3 of those is practically impossible. Now, we're here 5 years at this stage, and we started then to start to growing people as a production line. And I'm happy to say now we're in a position just to keep replacing people. And indeed, quite happy for our people to move on, because we're building people below into the industry. But I think there's regulatory change needed on that side. I think the refocusing away from the need for engineering. To be honest, most MROs can create their own engineers. You can be a pizza parlor technician and be qualified to become a mechanic on an aircraft, and that takes you on a path. Not so on safety and compliance, which is where the choke point is.
Yeah. What about the business jet operators in terms of increasing fees? I don't think the business jet operators have any problem with that for getting...
Well, I would say this is a low-fare country, if I may say. I fully agree with David. The fees are very low. I don't want them to be increased, but in fact, I mean, it's amazing. We pay peanuts, and I don't even know how this can be sustained apart from the taxpayers pay the bill for us. So this is one point to consider. We want a strong CAD Malta. We want a strong regulator. We want to have people that can work for years with us because they know the business. We don't want to just go into details, but we want to have people that guide us throughout the difficult times or when regulation change, when we have to adapt. We need that guidance. And nowadays, because we are 55 with multiple types, it's very difficult. So indeed, fares are low. I don't know what is the policy of the country for that. They can keep low, but we have to find the ways to support CAD Malta to express themselves with quality people that grow within that culture, which is great with Charles and was great even before. In fact, I just remember Mike is somewhere, Mike O'Brien and Carl Tabone. These were there long time before Charles was on board. Of course, Charles gave that extra additional layer of dynamism and vision and the possibility to go further where we are now.
By the way, I should really clarify, I'm not looking for higher costs for us. I'm simply saying the cost should relate to the... what I'm trying to say is that the cost should relate to the complexity and the effort. And I don't see a huge amount of it. I would wager that less effort is spent on us.
I don't know if that's strictly...
Well, Charles, we'll have a conversation afterwards. I would wager that comparatively less effort is spent on, for example, an operator like ourselves, or indeed Comlux, than with, say, a 4-aircraft operator with 4 different types.
Yeah. Moving on, Alice, how well does Malta support your day-to-day operations, whether that's infrastructure, service providers, or support? Are there areas where the ecosystem still needs to mature in Malta?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I believe that the country needs to start supporting the number of people that are here and everything that's required for them. We see growth, even coming here. I'm coming fairly often, of course. There's so many new places, new buildings, everything, and it's quite hard, actually, sometimes to, where do you live? How much do you pay for that? The people you're bringing, how much can they accept from what is here? How much can they adjust? I think it's a question for the future, and how the country is growing, which is incredible. Since I came here the first time, I almost don't recognize many places. There needs to be, for sure, some kind of support for all this in terms of the roads, for example. Even the roads, I would say, that's quite a challenge most of the times. And I think, I suppose there is a plan in terms of the government and everything, but since we're always more operators, more maybe now in the financial part, more players, there has to be something to bring the people here and to keep them here and to give them, the basic things, I would say, that somebody expects coming from Europe at least. You know.
Miguel, do you have any comments on that, just in terms of the ecosystem generally, where it needs to mature more?
Yes, I think that, okay, this is island, so the space is little. So when you bring people and more people, okay, you need to build houses. So at the end, there is a limit. So this limit will reach, and it will be, prices will increase the price of the houses. So at the end, we have to look into it, because we suffer this the same in Ibiza. So you go to Ibiza, there is no people, because when you want to rent a house, that is impossible in summer. Okay, so we need to think about this here.
Andrea, you're nodding. Annie?
Absolutely. This is the problem that our people face. They come here, they want to come to Malta, they want to work with us, but at the end, the cost of living is not like, nothing compared with what was the standard living cost 10, 15 years ago was a low-cost country. In fact, now is Switzerland sometimes. And we cannot afford that. We have to find ways to mitigate that effect, because we need to attract people from outside. We love Maltese and we love people coming from the school, but it's not enough. We need people from all over, and we need to mix culture. The beauty of this country is that this mixture of culture that brings richness to our business. And we have to maintain that. So we need to bring people here. We need to keep the people. And the people are struggling now because of multiple...
costs.
Not only the cost, but also the regulation. Sometimes it's very difficult for the third country national coming here maybe 10 years ago. Now they are still not settled because of the bureaucratic system is not the best for them.
Okay, so
we need to take care of that.
the government could make more efficient
That's
system
absolutely,
in place
yes.
to get more resource on the island. I won't go into that much because Louise has got a panel on this later. David, what's your view on that?
My view is that we need to try and get more people from Malta into the business. I mean, if you're bringing people across, like young people, in my experience within Ryanair, Malta Air, young people are happy to move and they will live pretty much anywhere. But if they're going to build a career here and grow into becoming managers and senior managers and so on, the choice then is moving from somewhere that they will tolerate while having the fun to somewhere else. And not every salary pays the sort of living environment that most of us here are privileged to enjoy. So I think it's an issue, but I think it really needs to be solved to a greater degree.
But that's an education scenario, and that goes way back.
To a greater degree by bringing more Maltese in.
Yeah.
And we're not actually talking about a huge... I really think we're talking about key jobs in the safety and compliance area. I mean, that's where the choke point is. It's not too difficult to find. Engineering is just badly advertised. The problem with engineering is that it's very hard for somebody to see a career path into becoming a B1 engineer. It's very hard to describe in 2 sentences instead of saying, join gaming company X, have free breakfast or a swimming pool, as Charles says, and enjoy yourself. I mean, I think the MROs will begin to solve that problem themselves, to be honest. That's my own view, by growing the people.
Yeah, they are struggling with it. I said they are struggling with it at the moment. I mean, across the board, the MROs are.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to fix it. And I think they can, because they can actually do that education internally. I mean, the amazing thing about, and it struck me profoundly about becoming an aircraft engineer, is that you don't require any qualifications whatsoever to become part of the 70% of an MRO activity, which is being a mechanic. You don't require qualification.
Andrea, you're the engineer?
Well, engineers, okay, if we talk about production engineers, I fully agree there is an amount of volume that is needed to create, of course, the work that is needed to be done, but also airworthiness and other areas, flight dispatchers. There are many specific jobs that require years of experience and qualifications that we lack. It would be lovely to have schools that bring over this amount of people that we need, but I think it's just impossible for a small country like this. Everybody focus on aviation. There are so many things to do in this world that not everybody likes aviation, just we want passionate people.
Well,
so the passionate people are all over the world.
So just going back to Alice, as a new operator, you opened the AOC last year. What was your experience like obtaining an AOC in Malta, and what advice would you give to others?
My personal experience was very good. I found it easy. I found it streamlined, and that's obviously because I worked with you as well, so that makes perfect sense. But also because I just think the rules are quite clear. I don't think you need to start digging. I don't think you need to start inventing anything. I think you just need to have solid people and a solid plan. And if you have that, it will work. If you don't, I think you're going to struggle absolutely everything and in every aspect. So for me, it was good. And the advice, prepare, be prepared.
Be prepared,
don't,
very much so.
Don't come and try and swim your way through it,
I just want to touch on the reputational element. And Manuel, I'm going to go back to you here. When a register grows fast, it draws attention and political pressure. Malta now has over 900 aircraft, 55 AOCs, and countries like Austria, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain have seen operations move to Malta. With that in mind, the Maltese register's reputation could suffer if quality is not maintained. What measures do you think are essential to ensure growth does not undermine Malta's credibility as a jurisdiction?
Well, again, the reason why we open an AOC here in Malta is because we cannot grow more in Spain. And if we want to bring customers from Europe to Spain and they had to pay high taxes, so they won't come to us.
But you still have Spain.
Okay, yes. So
Why?
we've been to Malta, okay, and I think Malta, what they have is very clear regulation, okay? They have the web page, the IONs, so you have
the OANs,
every IONs for each topic, so if you need something, it's there, it's rated, so you have to follow, and if it's not, you can contact them and they will issue one for you, because, you know, it happens in the past, okay?
Okay. Why do you need two? Why have you got Spain and Malta, though?
Because, as I say, I cannot bring customers to Spain because they won't accept.
But I mean the other way. Why have you not moved your Spanish aircraft to Malta?
Well, we have done someone because it depends. Okay, you know the business aviation, we have like in Spain 24 aircraft and 15 different types.
Yeah.
Here in Malta we have like 6 aircraft, we are bringing 7 and we are 6 different types. So at the end, it's the customer, the type of aircraft. So now we bring in one aircraft to Malta because we have the same time. It's more easy to bring it to the AOC rather than to create a new fleet. So.
Andrea, you wanted to say something on that?
Yes, about perception, about the image that Malta would... I mean, again, coming back 15 years ago, I had to explain where was Malta, really seriously, to many clients. And then I had to explain for many years why Malta and not another place. that doesn't happen anymore. They just ask Malta. They come to you because they know that you are in Malta. So it's completely changed in terms of aircraft owners. However, the big airlines, the big names, they came, huge numbers. I mean, we have to be much better than before, even statistics-wise. Now we have 900 aircraft. That means that risk-wise, we are more at risk. So we need to be much better. We need to increase our quality, our performance everywhere. Every single operator, the authority, we have to be able to perform better than the others, because if we start in a wrong path of having issues, I don't know, it will end up very soon. So we need to be careful, and this is a message to Charles and his team, and to ourselves as well. We have to focus on what matters, which is safety and capability to respond.
Say, what measures specifically are you talking about that we need to look at?
Well, again, training, smart people that apply regulation in a right way, professional way, time at work spent well. We need to apply all the best measures in order to manage a business in a correct way and not be pirates. I'm not saying they are, but we have to be careful and vigilant.
Okay. And David, just to go back to you in terms of the multiple locations, multiple AOCs. So you have the UK, you have Ireland, you did have Austria, but you closed that down, moved to Malta. Why do you need so many?
Well, technically and legally, we didn't move it. We closed one and we opened another, just to be clear, for cheapy purposes. But why do we have multiple AOCs?
Yeah, what's the
Because
value?
we want to spread our risk.
Okay.
Just because Malta is an excellent environment right now with excellent leadership within TMCAD, it doesn't mean it always will be. Just because Malta provides 15% tax for specialist operators doesn't mean it will always be that case. So that's one reason. We are spreading our risk now in substantial proportions. We have 200 aircraft here, 300 aircraft in Ireland, and 60 or 70 in Poland, and that will grow, and all of them will grow. And the other thing we want to do is to create competition between the regulators. But a point I want to, something that really slightly disturbed me earlier.
Okay.
And that's to describe TMCAD as flexible. I know, we all know what we mean, but I think it's an unhelpful phrase. I think what we mean by flexible is that they don't add on extra stuff, the spice that Charles about. With other regulators, being flexible means relaxing some unnecessary rules that they've heaped on top of the regulation. The good thing about Transport Malta, Civil Aviation Directorate, is that they stick to the rules. Unlike, I may say, other regulators that I've had some experience of, who actually invent new rules, which are contradictory to the rules in question, which, as I look at that screen there, I see, should an EASA AOC replace
Well, I
the
was just
national
about to read that
well,
out,
I would
actually.
say absolutely not, because there is no greater bunch of clowns at inventing new rules.
So the question, just to gather what he's speaking about, it's up on the board anyway, will or should an EASA AOC replace national regulators? And I think that's from Graham Williamson.
Carry on for a moment.
Yes, please.
The answer is clearly no. Like, one of the values that I think we all experience about operating in Malta is our proximity to our regulator, the ability to communicate, explain, for them to see firsthand. EASA has become incredibly detached, and it's like counting how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, distracted off into issues that are driven by unions. Now, it doesn't affect you guys to the same degree, but what we've seen increasingly is sneaky regulation through the back door. For example, FTL changes in the last year, or proposed FTL changes in the last year, purportedly affecting air taxis and medical, air medical operations, actually affected commercial operators, and I suspect yourselves. And if there was one useful thing we could do between the commercial and the business jet and Transport Malta, maybe would be to have I don't know, a biannual or annual convention on proposed regulatory change. Because Malta has one great thing, despite its size, which is a sovereign voice in Europe. It is a vote at the Council of Europe. And it should be exercised in the interests of Maltese aviation. And I think that's an area that we need to coalesce on.
I fully agree. We cannot have an EASA AOC will be a drama for AOCs and for the transport in Europe. EASA, we experienced that with the design organization approval that we do have, where EASA is involved, is terribly complicated and bureaucratic for small reasons. It's just bureaucratic. So AOC needs vicinity to the regulator, need to be dynamic. It's a dynamic business and need to be maintained like this. Flexibility, I hate that word for a regulator as well. I think flexibility should turn into capability to understand priorities, because we all have priorities, and they are able to understand the real priorities for us as a community and to put the right resources where is needed. Because the feeling is that I have is that they want to support us. The feeling I had in the past 20 years before coming to business aviation in the commercial airline is that the bigger regulator in Italy, because I was working in Italy, is just trying to make your life difficult, not for safety, just because they like it. So that's the difference.
Alice, what's the one thing Malta must get right in the next few years to remain a top-tier jurisdiction, as far as you're concerned?
For me, I think staff. It's the biggest problem that might cause this to slide down. I think
Staffing for you or for TMCAD?
I think both. I think for TMCAD for sure. I think the more AOCs and the more aircraft, the more problems. Absolutely, like Andrea said. And then for sure also for the operator on the operator side, like we need to find a way to bring the right people and to keep them. And that is, I don't know how at the moment. I don't have an explanation for that. And you want to have people here. So maybe, like you said, maybe we grow somehow, the people in Malta. I don't know how much interest there is or how much people can be involved, but I think staffing is, from what I see, the biggest issue.
Okay. So final round question to all of you. If a new operator is asking for a straight answer, what would you say is Malta's biggest advantage and the toughest challenge to watch out for if you were setting up now? Andrea.
The sun is the biggest advantage. Absolutely. Sorry for the title, but no, as we said, everything what we said, but still today is the image, the perception, which is founded on a good ground, that makes Malta successful. So go there just because it's the right place, because everybody went there. There should be a good reason. This is what I explained. Look, we are here, we were the first, but we are still here because it's the best and it's proven. The worst challenge is resources. Resources is the killer of the regulators and of the operators and all the community if we don't take actions. And we have a panel for that. I think I want to hear that panel is very important.
Yeah. Miguel.
The approach to the TMCAT Charles Patch, I think is very important, because if you have a problem, you talk to them, they always find a solution. So this is
practical.
Practical is very important. Again, what Andrea says is, if you are growing, you need to be prepared for this growth and have people trained to receive all this increase of work, because sometimes you can death of, it's like, okay, I was swimming and I couldn't get to the seaside. So sometimes you need to be prepared and have the people before.
Yeah. Okay, Alice?
Biggest advantage, I would say, the approachability of the TMCAD. I think that is extremely important, especially for me as I was setting up, the fact that I would ask and I would get an answer and it didn't take a month. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that is very rare, and it's one of those things that you will really appreciate when you're setting up this kind of business. And difficulties, like I said, for me, it's staffing. That's I wouldn't know where to start. It's not that I'm not a foreigner to the country or anything, but I wouldn't have been able to find the right people easily. And I know, and I'm not interested in taking anybody from somewhere else. Of course, somebody's going to come from somewhere else in the end, but that's not the idea. You'd like to have stability. You'd like to have people who stay, of course. So it's just maybe find the right people and the right fit, but it's difficult for sure. So for me, that's
okay. David?
Well, I disagree that the sun is the biggest advantage. Speaking as a pale, bald Irishman, it's the biggest threat, but it's enjoyable enough. Look, I can't disagree with anything that's said. The biggest advantage is the approachability and pragmatism of TMCAD, without a shadow of a doubt. The biggest threat is staffing both within TMCAD and for our own organisations. We're large enough now to begin to grow our own, and I think the larger operators here should be encouraged, somehow incentivized to grow their own. There is a regulatory time limit, which is a problem, and if that disappeared, it would make life easier. Not your time limit, but a European time requirement on qualification.
Okay, okay. In terms of questions from the audience, or indeed questions to Kurt, who's sitting there beside Charles, in terms of resources that go into Transport Malta, now is the time to announce any further investment into Charles's pot. Any other questions from the audience? No? Okay. Sorry? Yes, of course. So this is Kurt Farrugia, the CEO of Transport Malta, who's just going to make a comment. Bear with me 1 second.
Not yet.
Good morning, first of all. Of course, I've been hearing what everyone has been saying, and it's very clear that TMCAD is a very important element for bringing business to Malta. I am very aware of that factor, and that's why I've been discussing, I would say, on a weekly basis with Charles on how to improve resources. And I tend to agree with a lot that has been said, particularly on the turnover at Transport Malta, at headship level. And I think that's something we need to be very aware of. Because what we've started throughout this past year, I became CEO of Transport Malta in August of last year. And what I realized was that there were a lot of issues that have been coming to my desk dating 2 or 3 CEOs before me. What we're trying to do is to give a lot more stability, and particularly to focus our efforts as Transport Malta, not to interfere in the day-to-day work at TMCAD, because TMCAD in reality can and is working on its own steam, particularly with Charles' leadership. What we are trying to do is facilitate as Transport Malta in order to have more resources, particularly more people. And Charles can attest that in the past year, and particularly in the past few months, all his requests were acceded to. Of course, once you issue a call out there for people, you need to find the people, you need to find the right talent, and we need to go out there and try and attract people towards TMCAD with what we offer. What I can say is, even in terms of salaries, we are quite competitive. Possibly not to the level of the industry. However, then there are other elements that make us more competitive in terms of having stability as a regulator and all of that, including the way we operate in terms of flexibility for employees. What I can say is that all our efforts are focused on strengthening and consolidating the work that TMCAD has been doing, And of course, in terms of succession planning, I have no doubt that we'll keep Charles for the next 30 to 40 years.
Thanks, Kurt. One of the things I have to say about working with TMCAD since 2011 now, and the absolute passion, you know, it's not just a job, it's not like dealing with any other civil service, the absolute passion of the inspectors to do the right role, to work with the operators, to understand their business is second to none. And that goes from the legend that is Mike O'Brien that's in the room, and you know, Carl Tavoni back in the early days, due to the present inspectors, the leadership of Charles, it's very practical. There's an understanding that this is a business and that it needs to work from the regulators, but they need more help. They need a bigger budget, basically. So, sorry, Charles, you had a question? No? Comment? I'm sorry, there's another. Charles and then Gerard. Sorry, Al.
Just a comment to throw back stuff. First of all, stop poaching from us. So if you're setting up here, don't come from my people, because I will retaliate. So one thing, try not to poach from the regulator, because that's hurting the industry, not helping the industry. The other thing is the complexity. We read the same law. We read the same law as Andrea, as David, as all the rest, basically. So if you prepare yourself better, it's easier for us. You don't, I mean, what kills me is that we are pragmatic, we try and answer the phone. What kills me is the call Friday at 5 o'clock with this big thing, which you could have done 2 days before.
Yes.
That creates ripples inside the system. And if you have your own people who are throwing things at us, unprepared manuals, I do not expect to receive a manual that I need to recorrect. So this is the complexity of things. You could make, the operators could make life so much easier by understanding what they're supposed to do and do it correct, rather than me having to correct 17 times, or my people, not me, basically, 17 times a manual. So that's just a point on complexity and how the two sides of the environment need to work.
I agree. Sorry, there's another question at the back there.
Stanley Wijaya, DC Aviation MBAA. I was trying to shut up, not to be controversial right from the beginning, but we need to be careful as an industry when we say the fees are low. Transport Malta is a government department, and the fees will increase, and Charles will continue to struggle with recruiting people, because the problem is not, and I understand what Kurt is saying, that there is support, but it does not stop at Kurt. It's a government department, there's systems and structures of how not to work on a weekend, and we're starting to suffer that. The flexibility, the agility that we that made us come to Malta. Not now, because Malta has 900 aircraft. That's the threat. If we continue to grow, and politicians, and this is a bit of a message to Kurt rather than the panel, politicians look at numbers. We are not 900, and they tell Charles, when are we going to be at 1,800? And it shouldn't be like that anymore. We are at a number that we can handle, and we have to be choosers. So if people don't give Charles quality, he should not feel the pressure to grow the register. It's now we are at a stage that we are amongst the big boys, and if we want to remain there, we need to make sure that we have that. So you know, I'd be a bit careful. There are areas where the fees can increase. I think all the industry would be more than happy to pay fees for the weekend. But yeah, the quality and the level of service need to increase. And just one last remark to Kurt, the CEO of Transport Malta. I know there is a huge difference between Malta and Germany in terms of size and the oversight that the authority has to look at. But if you see the number of people that Charles has for 900 aircraft versus maybe 300 more in Germany. And then, yeah, the resources is a huge, huge, huge difference. It's like 90% less in Malta versus what they have in Germany.
That's true. Panel, would you like to address any of Stanley's points there?
Well, I wouldn't use Germany as a benchmark for efficiency. But I fully agree with the point. I mean, we need to keep up with it, and I think Charles himself said it. It's time to be more and more choosy about who comes on the register.
And I think Malta is now, to be
Sorry,
honest.
I didn't disagree. I'm endorsing what was said. But no, that's my comment. Germany is not a benchmark, but 90% is quite a big gap, all right.
Great.
Anyone else? Okay, so that brings us to the end of our panel. I'd like to thank our speakers, Andrea Zanetto, Manuel Tirado, Alice Tropoe, and David O'Brien for sharing their views. Thank you all for your attention. Enjoy the rest of CGI Malta.